evening, you're watching SG News. I'm Hugh Richards. Coming up tonight, we'll have a roundup of the latest news headlines and all the latest sports news ahead of the weekend. And I'll be reviewing the week's regional papers with my old friend, scholar, writer, science fiction geek, Dr. Chris Dowes. Four people have been injured after a serious crash involving three vehicles on the A1031 earlier today. All four people were taken to hospital following the incident, which occurred between Tetney and Humberston. An air ambulance crew was sent to the scene close to Cedar Park Cottages after the 999 alert was raised at 10:25 this morning. The stagecoach number 50 service was briefly unable to serve Humberston following the crash. Meanwhile, the A16 has now reopened after being temporarily closed as investigations were carried out. Several £1,000s have been raised for a Hull builder and founder of a well-known local charity who had tools stolen from his van. Paul Matson, founder of Hull for Heroes, had been helping out on the television series DIY SOS. However, he woke to find that more than £4,000 worth of tools had been taken from his van overnight on Wednesday. Following a big appeal and with the help of television presenter Nick Knowles, so far more than £3,500 has been raised for the builder. Paul said he was gobsmacked by the amount of support he's received from the public. Hull for Heroes is a local charity that provides support and resources for military veterans. Replacement bus services are being brought in to cover certain routes in East Yorkshire by East Riding of Yorkshire Council. This comes after local operator East Yorkshire Motor Services, EYMS, made the commercial decision to cancel services. The revised travel arrangements will affect routes in and around Driffield, Market Weighton and Pocklington, and for those travelling between Bempton, Buckton and Bridlington. Acklam's coaches will run two new services between Hornsey and Hull from Tuesday the 8th of May, 4 days after the cancellation of the 220 and 230 EYMS buses. Staff at Hull College are calling for the immediate resignation of Chief Executive Michelle Swithenbank. A vote of no confidence was placed in her by members of the University and College Union yesterday. Union official Julie Kelly said 57% of union members took part in the ballot, and of them, 79% voted for strike action over plans to cut 231 jobs. This follows a restructuring plan by Hull College Group in order to deal with a £10 million deficit. The group operates sites in Hull, Goole and Harrogate, and a spokesman said strike action would not solve financial and operational issues. A Lincolnshire Care Association chair has been appointed to head up a national care association. Melanie Weatherly, CEO of home care provider Walnut Care, will co-chair the Care Association Alliance after being appointed by the body last week. Ms Weatherly currently represents Lincolnshire on the body as the current chair of the county's Care Association. This appointment is seen as a boost to care providers in Lincolnshire, with her connections to the care in the region. A new lifeboat is being launched in Bridlington tomorrow at a special ceremony attended by the Archbishop of York. Dr. John Sentamu will give a blessing at the naming of the RNLI's new Shannon-class lifeboat. The state-of-the-art vessel will be named in memory of Bridlington-born Anthony Patrick Jones, who donated a substantial sum of money to Bridlington RNLI in his will. His generous bequest largely contributed towards the funding of the lifeboat station's new Shannon-class boat. The Mayor of North Lincolnshire is set to plummet from great heights this weekend, all in the name of charity. Councillor Peter Clark will take on a 15,000-foot skydive on Sunday to raise money for his chosen charity, When You Wish Upon a Star. So far, more than £2,500 has been raised for the challenge, with proceeds going towards support for children with terminal or life-threatening illnesses. Mr Clark will be taking the plunge from Hibblestow Airfield near Brigg. Time to have a look through the papers now with my old friend Chris Dowes. Dr. Chris Dowes, I beg your pardon, my dear doctor.
My dear sir.
Now, what have you found for us, Chris? Oh, no, before we go to the newspapers, you've got, I don't know if to call it a publication out just recently or
It's an audio drama. It's a recorded dramatic piece by Games Workshop have got their own publishing arm called Black Library Press. I've been working for them for a number of years, and I've kind of transitioned back to script-based work because I used to be a comic book writer. And my 4th audio drama, which is called Titan's Bane, has been released very recently, and to some rather good reviews, I'm very pleased to say.
Including from me.
Including from you, sir, absolutely. And by the way, can I just say happy birthday here
Thank you.
on air? And Sarah and Trinity say happy birthday in particular.
So I thank Sarah and Trinity for that,
very, very
that kind of
so
thoughts.
get that in there.
Let's just mention, this is in the Warhammer universe.
Warhammer, yes, Warhammer 40k, which is, there's 2 main areas to the Warhammer universe. It's the science fiction part, basically. And anyone who is familiar with it will know that they have publications based on the characters that are in the games. And that's what I've done. So thank you very much for the plug.
No, you're very welcome. It's well worth listening to, and it's beautifully well written, of course, but it's beautifully produced.
It is really
and played
very
and
good.
engineered as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now you found some stories for us. What have you got?
Well, in an extraordinary science fiction segue.
Yes.
Because I work for, amongst other things, the Star Trek magazine, and have done for a number of years, and was amused and delighted to find in the Bridlington Express. Yes, that is, yeah. That's Marina Sirtis, who played Councillor Deanna Troi.
Yes, indeed.
In Star Trek The Next Generation, is apparently going to be appearing in Panto by the looks of it. But I thought it was quite amusing that Star Trek bid to finally get a Marina, you see, because her name's Marina Sirtis, and Marina, it being on the sea. I just thought it was just extraordinarily clever.
I'm sure that's all very well planned. She was the psychic one, wasn't she?
She was indeed, yes. She's actually more of an empath than a psychic, to be honest with you, Hugh,
very well. Okay.
Yeah, okay, let's not get into that. Anyway,
and she had a thing with Chief Officer Riker?
Right, absolutely, yeah, old wooden Riker, absolutely, the beardy man. But,
The Next Generation is the best series, isn't it?
How long have we got? It's hard to say. Bits of it are. But then, Voyager was very good. Original series was very good.
It's the best one because it's got Patrick Stewart.
Well, of course it has. Make it so.
You need to engage. Yes,
absolutely
you need to have
right.
an Englishman in that central chair.
Bit too full of number ones for my liking.
What more have you got?
Right. Well, going from science fiction to horror, I thought this was interesting because it's the whole Daily Mail, and a story ran yesterday. City centre traders claim zombie-like rough sleepers are destroying business, and this is entirely the same as the plague, the scourge of Freeman Street with the spice...
in Grimsby.
In Grimsby, I beg your pardon, yeah. Freeman Street, Grimsby. And it appears that, unfortunately, retail areas all over are having exactly the same very, very unfortunate experience. And it's a bit of a shame. I know Hull and Grimsby have a certain tension, but they're clearly having the same issues around the same areas.
Well, there are 2 problems here, aren't there? There's the problem of homelessness and the problem of drug distribution.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's quite relatively new drug called Spice. So I don't really know much about that, which is fairly cheap as well. That makes it even more pernicious. But the homelessness problem, how do we have a homelessness problem when there are so many empty homes?
Well, in both areas, from my brief recollections of Hull, I know it fairly well. The answer is I have absolutely no idea. It's extraordinary. I mean, it's kind of connected to one of the stories I've picked in there about the ridiculous issues with the traffic in the south of Grimsby at the moment. They're building all these brand new houses, and yet it's well known there are whole areas, streets, where there is a lot of housing which is empty.
Yeah.
Why indeed?
And you just have to look at the windows above the shops, even on high streets, and know that once when there were people living literally above the shop,
absolutely,
there's a boarded up or broken glass, and there's nobody living up in perfectly serviceable dwellings.
Yeah, and they're usually 2-storey flats as well, particularly down one whole length down Freeman Street, really. Yeah. I think there's a lot more to the owners of the properties and development covenants and so on and so forth, which is very, very unfortunate. But I thought it was unfortunate and yet interesting that just the use of the language and also the issue that's affecting Hull is unfortunately affecting Grimsby as well, which that's a bit of a shame to be joined with such a...
Well, I suspect it's a lot of towns around the country.
Absolutely right, yeah.
What's next? You've got...
well...
Oh, you're moving on.
I wanted to pick up, while we're in Hull, again, this is from the Hull Daily Mail. As an educator, someone who was at Grimsby Institute for 20 years, man and boy, the issues at Hull College, this is not news to anybody who's involved in
further education. We did mention this story in the news.
Absolutely, but I mean, this is like 5-10 years in the making, that the situation of Hull, which is, it's a dreadful mismanagement situation.
I'll just clarify one thing. We said in the news that there was a vote of no confidence in Ms Swithenbank by the union.
Yes.
That has absolutely no authority. She doesn't have to, it's not like a vote of no confidence in the House of Commons. Nobody has to resign.
Absolutely. I don't think it's likely to go the way of, for instance, the UCU's actions with the VP of the Open University, who
Vice
resigned.
Principal.
Yeah,
yep.
absolutely. But it is an absolute mess, and my understanding is that Mr. Swithenbank was brought in to fix the finances, £10 million in the hole, which is, I believe, a conservative estimate. But losing 230 posts at any college, regardless of its size and stature, is just catastrophic.
I suspect that the college hasn't released the numbers of how many fewer students it's going to be able to teach for less time as a consequence of losing all those teachers.
Well, what will happen is the staff who are still there, made to feel lucky that they've got a job, will be just take on the excess. I know that roles are falling, nationally for FE colleges. Hull University has got issues as well with enrolments, but it's not just located to Hull. You know, it's across. It's nationally. It's an issue because I've been involved for the last 3 years in a project to elevate perceptions of higher education with FE. So I've been working with 16 other colleges nationally. So I kind of know quite a lot about what's going on with this, but it's just really unfortunate that it's coming home to roost so badly in Hull, because Hull College, the same as Grimsby Institute, is absolutely fundamental to the town, to the city.
We're going to have to stop there for a moment. Chris, join me after the break. We'll continue our review of the week's papers, and Jack has all the latest sports news ahead of the weekend's fixtures. Welcome back. You're watching SG News. Still to come tonight, all the sports news ahead of the weekend's fixtures. And still with me in the studio, Dr. Chris Dowes, as we continue our review of the week's paper. What have you found, Chris? What's this next? This is the Market Raisin story.
Short and sweet, this. I like this very much. It tickled me. Plan launched to put market back in Raisin. Town Council sets up new initiative to attract more traders by having a market in Market Raisin.
Well, there's a beautiful market square.
Yeah.
Which is exactly where a market square should...
The infrastructure exists, Hugh.
It does indeed, right between...
The name is on the sign. I see it as I drive to Lincoln.
Between the church and some of Market Raisin's wonderful pubs.
Yes.
I remember that being that market square when there has been a market, though. Is it?
You've been there that long? It is your birthday, after all, Hugh.
Maybe it's just somebody selling flowers or something like that.
I don't know.
It's quite a small little confined space, isn't it?
It is.
Is that where they're going to have it?
Do you know what? I don't know. It's just plans. They're just a new initiative, so I don't know what that means, quite frankly.
No, it's a little vague, isn't it?
It is rather vague. What isn't vague, however, is jail for bizarre kidnap hoaxer. Hainton man, not Hainton Avenue, but Hainton, 32, not 32 men, just age 32, claimed ex-girlfriend put a bag over his head and bundled him into a car.
Now, that's a strange thing to make up.
It is, and they've seen through his tissue of lies.
Yes.
And they've said, no, you didn't. An innocent woman spent 6 hours in custody and 3 months on bail. Blimey. After her ex-boyfriend invented a bizarre and inexplicable story. It took them 3 months to work out it was bizarre and inexplicable, clearly.
I was going to say, why did he do it? But if it's inexplicable, I guess there's no explanation.
There's no explanation. By definition, it cannot be explained. Shall we leave it there? Because it's just inexplicable.
I don't think we can get much further with that one.
No, not really. We've hit the buffers. Similarly... This is from the Grimsby Telegraph. Shoplifting mum bursts into tears at the prospect of not being jailed. Now, that's not the point. Homeless thief stole jars of coffee. I put this question to you, Hugh.
Yes, my lord.
If she's homeless, how's she going to put the kettle on?
It is a very good question. Why would you steal coffee if you've got nowhere to make coffee?
Exactly. I wouldn't have thought there's exactly a vibrant black market for coffee either.
It is no longer the early 1940s, is it?
No, it isn't. No, like you're selling silks and watches and coffee.
Why is she wanting to go to prison, though? Is this touching on that homelessness question again?
It could well be. She shoplifted Julie Drever, broke down when it looked as if she might be spared a prison term. I might be spared a prison. Did she go to... I don't know. Anyway, she stole £24.43 worth of coffee.
That's a lot of coffee.
How can you expect to get away with that and no one noticed?
That's sort of 5 or 6 of those big tubs, isn't it?
Absolutely. Really? You reckon she kept the door ajar?
Oh, Chris. Well done. That's very good work.
Thank
It's
you
worth
very
getting
much
you in
indeed.
here.
And now, talking of words...
Yes.
You're going to love this.
I am, I think. I know what's coming.
Now, this is from the Scunthorpe Telegraph. Impressive two-ton beauty is not what caught my eye. Actually, it was, because this is from an auction house. It's the antiques section by Paul Cooper of Edison's Auctioneers. Other auctioneer houses are available.
Indeed they are.
Impressive two-ton beauty. A particularly rare example of one of the most iconic cars of the pre-war American autumn. One of the most iconic. Hugh, can we discuss the word iconic, please?
Extremely angry. Firstly, you can't be more or less or most or
Exactly
least
right.
iconic.
It's not
You either are.
quantifiable.
It is a binary state. You
Absolutely.
something is either iconic or not.
Absolutely.
And secondly, it is not iconic unless it is not only a representation of something else,
Yes.
but also bears within it the essence of that something else.
You see, you once described me as a communications scholar, which was very kind of you, if slightly inaccurate, but I took it because you was very poorly at the time.
I remember that. Too.
Yes, yeah, you slipped down that sofa.
Yes.
And I actually teach semiotics, and it's not iconic at all. It's either indexical or symbolic. So I would say it's symbolic, not iconic, quite frankly.
I would agree with you, especially since I don't know what indexical means.
Indexical means like if you see smoke, then you can assume there's fire.
I see. It indicates.
Exactly
I would
right.
have said indicative.
Yeah, but it's indexical is the actual terminology that is used by...
You wouldn't want to use indicative because that would confuse it with a mode as opposed to subjunctive, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Thank you very much.
Shall
for
we
that.
move on,
Yeah,
Doctor?
you pulled that out of the bag, didn't you? Very good. And now also, but I want to... Yeah, so that's some semantic tomfoolery, but on an incredibly serious note, for anybody who lives in Grimsby, and particularly anybody who lives in the south of Grimsby, Scaffer, as we like to call
Yes,
it, or
indeed.
Scartho, if you're from the right side of the tracks. This is from the Telegraph, but this has been rumbling on. In fact, it made its way to the
Grimsby
Commons.
Telegraph.
Grimsby Telegraph, beg
Yep.
your pardon. Made its way to the Commons either today or yesterday. Martin Vickers.
Questions in the House, indeed.
Yes, because of the just inexplicable state of not so much the roads, but the utter lack of coordination of planning, trying to get it into or out of Scartho or the town centre. Effectively, if you live in or around Scartho or New Waltham or Waltham, you effectively cannot get in or out at certain times of the day because of the not even joined up thinking. It's not even joined up feeling. It's not joined up at all. Amusingly, the lights that are at the 14 weeks worth of roadworks at Diana Princess of Wales Hospital on Scartho Road, they failed a couple of days ago. So you were sitting in a car going into town. You had one light on red, one light on green. Chaos and amusement ensued, and the traffic was backed up all the way to Wheelsby Road coming out of the town. It's just gone so far beyond a joke, but it brings in all of the questions, like I said earlier on in the show, about planning and town planning, and why are you putting them there when the infrastructure cannot support it at the moment? An extra 800 to 1,000 houses around the back
Well,
of Scartho,
this goes, you talk about Scartho Road, this also goes, of course, to one of the big questions about the upcoming local elections,
Yes.
which is the Tollbar roundabout and its possible conversion to a traffic lights junction, which many would argue would be very disruptive, many would argue would be more dangerous for the children
Yes.
at Tollbar School, and others would argue would make it faster and that would be a more efficient junction.
Well, I haven't seen anybody argue who lives there for a start. It's usually NG or their engineers or planners. Interestingly, the chaos that's been caused over just the last few days at the just past the Tollbar roundabout will probably do the vocal protesters in Waltham a favour, because if this is what happens when there's some temporary lights because of the building of a slip road onto
Then
the new
what other
estate
chaos
for a
might
few
ensue?
days, 8 months on the main roundabout will be catastrophic.
Waltham says no. Chris, thank you so much. We're going to have to stop there
Okay.
now because it's time to go over to Jack for the sports news.
We'll start with Rugby League, and Hull FC overcame Leeds Rhinos with a late 19 points to 18 win at the KCOM Stadium last night. Tries from Jake Connor, Bareta Faremo, Carlos Timavave and a late drop goal courtesy of Mark Sneed helped Lee Radford's side to a crucial win. The Black and Whites were leading 14 points to nothing until the 52nd minute. However, 3 quick-fire Rhinos tries saw them take 18-14 lead. Timavave then scored with 8 minutes remaining to draw the game level. Sneed stepped up with 4 minutes left to secure the win for the Early Birds. Last night's win was FC's first home victory against the Rhinos in 4 years and saw them leapfrog Leeds into 4th in the table. Across the city, Hull KR take on Oldham in the 5th round of the Challenge Cup on Sunday afternoon. Rovers will take to the field in a special edition kit, and Tim Sheens has made 4 changes to his squad for the game. Josh Johnson, Will Oakes, Will Dagger and Joe Cater replaced Danny Maguire, Justin Carney, Robbie Mulhern and Sean Lunt. The two sides faced off in the Championship last season, with KR winning both ties. However, they met at the same stage of the Challenge Cup in 2016, with Oldham producing a shock win. Sunday's clash kicks off at 3 o'clock. On to football now, and Hull City face Bristol City at the KCOMs tomorrow. City will be looking to get back on track, having lost narrowly to Sheffield Wednesday last time out. Nigel Adkins has no fresh injury concerns, so there's plenty of options going into the game, including skipper Michael Dawson, who is set to return, and Dan Batty, who signed a new contract with the club yesterday. Kick-off is at 3 o'clock. Scunthorpe United are back in action at Glanford Park tomorrow afternoon. The Iron take on Walsall in League One, looking to build on their win at Charlton last time out. Nick Dawes' men currently sit in the final playoff spot in League One and can maintain their position with 3 points against the Saddlers. The Iron have no new injury worries, with only Luke Williams out of action with a hamstring injury. Kick-off at Glanford Park is also at 3 o'clock. And finally, Grimsby Town head south to face Swindon Town tomorrow. Michael Jolly's side are still looking to secure their Football League status and sit 5 points above the relegation spots with 3 games remaining. Jolly said he is wary of the threat his side face tomorrow afternoon.
Well, I think they're a good team with some good players. I think they like to get on the front foot at home. You know that I know Matty Taylor from when I worked with him briefly at Burnley, and he's got great delivery from both open play and set plays. They've got other dangerous players. Obviously, Richards is a goal scorer. Kane Woolery I know quite well as well. So they've got some good players throughout their team, and they will be a threat to us.
And kick-off at the County Ground is also at 3 o'clock, and I'll bring you full details of all the results in Monday's programme. That's all for this week's sport. Back to Hugh in the studio.
Thanks very much, Jack, and my thanks to Chris for an excellent newspaper review. Very hard work to get him off Star Trek. If you have a news story for us, then visit our Facebook or Twitter pages, email news@s3.tv, or phone Grimsby 01472315553. From all of us here, I hope you have absolutely wonderful weekends. Until Monday, good evening.